I see behind you some journal pages.
No, those that's just, well, I'm in my studio here, and I have a kind of blackboard where I sketch out ideas and things and so forth. And they're not they're I think 14 by 17 or something like that. They're just big sheets of paper and tracing paper that I use to collect my thoughts. And but no, I do journals, but and actually I was showing you before, when you just came on, I was showing you my journal entry for today, out with the old.
Well, that's
um
a good one. That's so
yeah.
original, Mel.
Yeah, I have a other half of the studio, which I'll show you on that camera, where I tend to work, and then this side of the studio, that was here, where I am. This is more where I stream, where I do Zoom calls and things like that, and it's it's based on a friend's window, and then I use green screen, and sometimes we go back and forth, David Dunlap and I, using green screen on the blackboard back there.
So you talked David Dunlap into Zooming with you, do you?
He does. He will do that on occasion. He doesn't. It's not his favorite. It's not his favorite tool of communication. But um, I use it. I use it mostly for kind of streaming programs that I do on Zoom, and then I record them on Zoom, and then I transfer them to Facebook Live. So I do this on a regular basis, and that's he sees my Zoom calls more than I see his. He doesn't. He never initiates a call. Sometimes he catches up with it later on.
Can I ask you, you said you started keeping a journal in 2005, the year your mother died.
My father,
And your father or your mother died?
my father died in 2005, and um, my mother died in 85, I think, 84 or 85. And when she had her chemotherapy treatments, and I visited her at home, which is Holland, Michigan. And there were a lot of times when she would just sleep, and then I would read. I was reading a biography of Rembrandt at the time, a big fat book. And then when she'd wake up, I'd tell her stories about Rembrandt and so forth. And sometimes while she was sleeping, I would make drawings of her. And when my father then was dying in 2005, I went to visit him in Michigan, but he was already in kind of a coma, so he wasn't really. I could only sit at his side and read, and maybe draw some pictures of him as well. And then I had bought a notebook just for this purpose, to make those drawings or do those things in there, and so I just decided to keep going in it. And it was a little notebook. I don't even know where I got it, that had gridded paper on it, and I thought the gridded paper made it more like typing than drawing or writing. And so I used all kind of block letters in the grid, and I just started writing. And initially I wrote my dreams down, and so that would get me to do something every day, or give me some subject matter every day to write them down. And then well, I'm going to go to the other side, and I'll show you some of these
That sounds fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay. So I am on the other side of the world. This is kind of where my jigsaw puzzle swap shop. Whoops, I forgot I have to take the mouse over here. This is kind of set up so I can talk to a guest, but now when I'm my own guest in my studio, I can't stay on one camera. I got to move from one place to the next, and here I am. And now I've lost the picture as far as I'm concerned, so I'm going back to it. All right, so I have this ability to look at my page here. So normally this is that book I was talking about. Was I started making some notes where my father was, and they're very I don't know. It's look there. I just missed pages. They're kind of haphazard little comments and things like that I was writing on notes and ideas, and these are also perforated, so that means you could actually, take out a page by just, so
Oh, I see.
like
Yeah.
separate pages like that. That's a blank one, but then at some point, I don't know if I finished this whole one. Sometimes I couldn't get into the practice of it. It just wasn't working for me. And then I started making books where, like this one, this is my standard notebook. It's a Clairefontaine. They come from France, and it's gridded pages like that. And I went through and I write on the like if I were writing on this one, it's upside down for me, so I'm going to show you how I do it. I write on the right-hand side of the page. And this one starts with a dream about London, the last day of a visit, the happiest day of my life. And I feel a little lost on, just a description of a dream and things were happening. I did every page all the way through the book. And when I got to the end of the book, then I had all the writing on the right-hand side of the page. And then I turned the page over and I did again writing on the right-hand side of the page, but now this one the writing is in the opposite direction. I don't know if it's just because I'm cheap or because I kind of wanted to see chronology, but I also wanted to see memory. The other half of the page is like, from a time that's distance, and the right-hand page is always today's page and where I'm writing on. The left-hand page now is some memory of a previous page, and it's upside down. But if I want, I can just read it like, like that. And so I have about 30 of these books now that I've done, and they've gotten a little bit more. They've gotten a little bit more. They've gotten a little bit more
Graphic.
Well, regular. I've gotten the habit that it just. I looked and I had dozens of books that different kinds of little books that I had. Some that I had from my not childhood. I never had a habit of writing, and then the first time I took an art class, I had to do a sketchbook. So that's what these are like. A sketchbook is kind of like a journal, but it tends to be a bit more. It tends to be a sketchbook is like a journal, but this was more like collages and things like things. I started it. I was making little drawings and cartoon figures and oh, I gotta put it upside down. You see, I made little drawings on it, influenced by Disney things, and this was in high school, and things just like weird little sketches, drawings of my shoes or slippers or something. And I wasn't very good at that either. Although here's a picture of a JFK and a parakeet, and now I have two parakeets. I didn't have a parakeet as a child, but I've got two. This was a premonition of someday I'll have a I'll have a parakeet. So that's what a sketchbook was. It kind of was like, but I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't very regular at it. And they were too big, and I couldn't carry it along with me during the day to make things. Do you do a journal?
No.
No.
This is my journal. I do other things, but I have years and years of journals where I did write journals.
Oh yeah.
I wrote them. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
make collages in them or anything, but I wrote journals. But
Uh-huh.
recently I've been doing interviews with junk journal artists who use recycled material to make their journal. And I have a YouTube channel where I have conversations with anybody that I can talk to or who will want to talk to me about junk journaling.
Junk
So,
journaling.
junk journaling. And
Yeah.
basically, I think they're very close to art journals. They're very close to like the journal that you have, uh, that, you just put things in there. Like you made something, but they make books out of it. So some of it is overlapping book arts. So it's
I
book
understand.
art and recycled material and collage and any number of items that they happen to come by. Or intermediate, not intermedia, we call it intermedia, but multimedia
Yeah.
artists. But I thought you would be a good subject for journaling. And I thought that if you would share more of your journals, I would certainly like to see that. I think it'd be very helpful for people who make junk journals or um, artists, young artists who want to write or want not necessarily just write, but want to draw in their journals. And I was fascinated what you said about, well, you did a journal where you put your dreams in, you know,
Yes.
and there is nothing wrong with going one page and then another page. That's perfectly all right too. I remember Da Vinci used to write backwards in his journal that you could use a mirror and then see what he was really saying. So I think there is many different ways to journal as there are artists, but
Uh-huh.
you're a very senior artist. I mean, you've been doing
Yep.
this for a long time. So
Mhm.
I was just curious if you would share your
Yeah.
journals.
Okay. I'm going to tell you a couple of more things about them. One,
Okay.
I'm going to give people some advice about a journal. Don't buy the fancy journal. Don't buy a fancy journal to write in. The more precious it is, the less spontaneous that you'll be with it. And as you don't want to waste a page or something like a journal is just an accumulation, and the fact that it's in a book form means that it provides a chronology for you. Think about someone like Van Gogh. His journals are mostly letters to people that
To
have been
Theo,
collected.
mostly
Yeah.
to Theo, his brother.
Uh-huh. He wrote letters to his brother, and they're kind of collected in books, and we read them chronologically, but they weren't they didn't start off in a book. um, the buying a blank book and then filling it in is that's ways a good way to start a journal. But I found I have dozens of examples of trying to get started doing that where they just petered out. And so I recommend buying a relatively cheap and familiar format, and then just use it to give you this chronological sense of what you're doing. I had the same experiences as you, in that as I went on, the you know you some people use a journal like a scrapbook. They write something on a little piece of paper, or they save a fortune cookie, fortune, and then they glue it in their book, and they use it to kind of scrapbook their way through their life. And I don't tend to use it that way anymore. But recently, this is something that happened to both David Dunlap and I. Recently, I can't get the notebooks that I've been using for years. These Clairefontaine things, I can't order them from the manufacturer. I can't find them in a bookstore these days, or Google them on eBay or something. So make sure you have something that will be made that's pretty generic, so that you can always get it, or you have to change format. And changing format is like wearing a whole new set of clothes. You just don't know how to start over again with a new book. It's not familiar to you. And so that happened to me. It happened to David Dunlap. If you talk to him about his diary journals.
No, I would love to talk to him. I don't know if he would talk to me or not. I don't know.
Well, here's how he has these little notebooks like this, only they're smaller than, about 2/3 the size of this, and they can fit into his jacket pocket or his back pants pocket. And he carries it with him all the time. And he does a lot of repetitious drawing of the same thing over and over and over again on the pages of it. And he did this for years in the same book, and then they discontinued that book. He had to actually call the manufacturer and have them make a special run of these notebooks. He just had to calculate how long he thought he was going to live. And he ordered like 1,000 of these notebooks so that he would have plenty for the rest of his life. And he has a bookcase for them. It's a very strange bookcase. It looks like a coffin, because it is. It has shelves in it, and he puts all the books in one after another in his notebooks in it. But he intends that the bookcase will be disassembled when he dies, and that he'll be buried in the bookcase for his journals. That's a
I
pretty
will
interesting.
say that I do journal, but in a different way. And that is that I use my Facebook page as my journaling, because I keep it on a daily basis. Then at the end of the year, I go to Social Book and I buy the whole year's Facebook. And
Right.
that's my journal. Well, when I gave it to special, I made one especially for special collection from 2010 to something. And they said, well, what do we do with this? And I said, well, it's my journal. They have other things by me. And I said, well, this is my journal. And they said, well, how do we catalog this? And I said, well, I don't know, give it to Tim Shipe. He can throw it on his slush file and it can stay there, whatever. But that is my journaling. And that's how I journal. That's how I keep. Very rarely do I find it I very rarely say on Facebook, like I'm having surgery on the 20th or anything like that. I mean, it comes up in other conversations with other people, but I don't actually say that. In my status, I don't. It's mostly pictures and things like that. So
Right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but when you said, do I journal? Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, I understand this. I understand why this happened, because I think that you see, in the time of Van Gogh, someone collected those letters and put them into a book. But now Facebook does that for us. The cloud does it for us. Google Pictures does it for us. Various other things provide a chronological connection of the things that you write or produce. Now, we go to museums and artwork from different times, and you know, sometimes the exhibitions go to great pains to show which painting by which painter came first, and the chronology, and establish that chronology. We don't have to worry about that anymore. It's kind of automatically done for us by the fact that Google Pictures can tell you what you were thinking 12 years ago, you know, and it'll show you a picture of on this date. Well, Van Gogh didn't have that option. He didn't know what, you know, he didn't have that memory provided for him, that resource that to go back and say, 2 years ago, you know, maybe he would have gotten some perspective on his on his manias if he had been able to say, well, 2 years ago you were going through this same kind of depression, and it was because this, you know, it could have had some sense of like a memory. And I've always been interested in memory and how the brain works. And as I'm approaching 80, I have this thing going on where my memory's not as good. But I have these tools, like I can broadcast a program and it'll be saved in a particular order. And I love these things where they have you ever seen like a book about someone who's going through memory loss, Alzheimer's or something like that, and how their drawing changes or their coherency changes from time to time. Now we know this in conversation with people who are, you know, we've encountered that have that have mental aging kind of problems, but that's what's interesting to me is that by keeping the journal, you kind of document that process of a deterioration, and in many ways, it's not really deterioration. It's like a different kind of focus, one that's not as tied to things like chronology. Unfortunately, video, the cloud, and so forth provide that chronology for you. You really don't have to, we don't have to worry about slipping away the same thing and losing track of the sequence of things that happen to us. We have the ability to just assign that to something else, to the cloud, to take care of it.
But I do make books. I mean, I paid to make, like I ran the last 22 the whole year, January 1st to December 31st, this morning, because at the end of the year, I always get them for 40% off. So it's one book and it's 1 year, and it's the collection of my thoughts, my life.
Do you go back and read it?
You know, I don't, and I don't read my other journals either. I have them in a trunk, and that's pretty much where they stay. I move on, you know, I move on, but I'm sure my work is affected by them. I mean, even though I'm not reading them, I'm pretty sure that I'm affected by them. Like,
you think the simple fact of writing them down
exactly
is like creating you know, mnemonics, memory aiding devices in your head and experience, just because you write it down rather than talk it out, say something about it, or do it in another form.
I showed in pictures or aphorisms or memes. you know, it's like that's what I do. All of a sudden I'll get into aphorisms and then I'll publish those. And or I make political statements, or you know, this is all part of what one kind of thing that isn't necessarily what you're saying, or you and David. I don't necessarily want to be buried with them, but when I retire, I would like to look at them, and I have them
Uh,
year by year. So I would like to look at them year by year. So would you mind showing me some of your journals?
sure, sure. Let me. So let me just say one. When I ran out of the books, I found a new kind of book. So this is a book called well, something like that. I'll shift to the other camera so you can see it. Let's see. This is something that I found recently, which is um, here's a book. Here's a book. It's called The Years of Endurance by Arthur Bryant. And this company in the Netherlands, I believe, takes these books and they remove all the pages and put in blank ones. So you
Mhm.
have the hard cover of a book, but inside it's all blank pages. And then I write every day, or I draw things like this. Oh, come on. Okay. Just little notes, drawing of a pistol, um, drawings, kind of tracing. Hard to see these. The focus on the camera takes a second to. Yeah, let me try to. This particular camera can zoom in, so let's see what that does.
It's still very blur. No, now it's very good.
Yeah, yeah. So see here, I'm drawing maybe. Sometimes I draw shadows. Sometimes I draw. Here's another picture. See how, I don't know, just little cartoony things. Again, I'm doing stories. Here's a picture of an eye that I
Looks like a
drew.
bug,
Yes, I drew it yesterday. It looks like a bug, but it's
an
it's an
eye
eye.
bug.
Yeah, it's
Picture
an eye.
puzzle, swap
And
shop.
I should probably like emphasize that a little bit more. That look a little bit more like an eye. If you see more the iris like that. This is what I draw with. It's a graphite stick. It's a pencil, but it doesn't have any wood. It's all the same material as the lead in the wood or the graphite in the wood. I like it because it gets it gets broader as it goes on. It can be quite it can be quite light, or you can make it darker as you emphasize on it. I used to write in those quadrille books with where I would print everything. Like I would see how those are written like that. You
Mhm.
know, just like block letters. And I found when I had the blank pages without the grid, suddenly I was being more expressive by writing, you know, doing handwriting. I've always hated my handwriting. That's why I used block for a long time. But now I'm getting to kind of enjoy. I'm getting to kind of enjoy uh, writing these stories out and see my handwriting more. Here's this is a strange picture. This is a let me actually out a little bit. All right. So for instance, here I made a drawing about. This drawing is about turning the page. and this corner goes to that corner. And then I drew little, you know, I this is called
Emotion
turning the page, a drawing of a drawing of motion.
of emotion. Yes.
Yes, just the motion of changing the, turning from one page to another. I like to draw my hands a lot on the page. I don't know exactly why that is, but as I look at this, I see when I was drawing this, I had my hand on the page and I was drawing it with my other hand. But that was hard to draw because my hand was in the way. And then it's hard to draw your hand drawing. And I was making observations on how they're really only drawings about the process of drawing. And that's lessons that
I saw that one. That was on your Christmas page. Hey,
uh-huh.
day.
Yeah, they're all kind of, and I'm doing some, arty things. Like sometimes I will take this, I'll take the graphite pen, the pen that I'm working with. Well, here's a blank page. Here after my most recent page. So this one is, now I'm ready to draw. I've already written on the right-hand side of that, but I'm ready to draw right on this one. And then sometimes I'll do something like this. I'll sharpen my graphite and then leave the graphite crumbles on the page like a little scatter drawing of some sort. And then I'll start pushing those around with my pens, with my graphite. You can give you a really, let's see if we can close up even of that so you can see what I'm doing. So now I'm making a drawing by just kind of pushing these graphite things around, creating like I'm, from my point of view, I'm making a kind of figure of a person. There's a man and there's a face and a nose and a mouth, and it's like I'm cartooning. I'm creating this character, but then when I blow the graphite off, I see the drawing that I made kind of accidentally underneath it from pushing that stuff around. That made marks. It's like a kind of mystery drawing. I never saw this drawing until, I brushed away or blew away those little graphite things. I kind of drew underneath the surface of the things. Now I have something to start with, and I can add to that, or if I want to add Mickey Mouse ears to it, because Mickey Mouse is going out of copyright soon. So that suggests that to me, and I'm now I'm on my way to make a drawing that has no precedent. I'm just following. And to me, that's why you don't want a notebook that's particularly precious. You need to be. You need to be. If chronology is saving the history for you, you don't have to remember the history anymore. Then what you want to be is engaged in the process rather than the product of the thing. I don't think of these. You're right. I don't think many people go back through their journals. I have that ability because on the other side of the page is where where I made this drawing today, but this drawing is from 2 or 3 weeks ago, because as I go through the page, it gives me something on both sides of the page. I'm almost considering this, that I would go through the book, writing on the right-hand side of the page, all the way to the end of the book, turn it over, use on the right side of the now blank right-hand side of the page, go through the whole book that way, and then just keep doing that, layering and layering and, and layering. Because
I'm confused by one thing,
yeah,
and that is you're so visual. And these, I mean, what you just did, the Mickey Mouse thing, excuse me, that's really, I mean, that's what I had thought your journals would be collages of things, or they would be, but you write in your journals. You write your thoughts, like whereas when you posted, like just the other day, I saw what AAA was the title of the a puzzle piece, or it was a puzzle, but it looked like something like a window and windows and pizza and a whole bunch of
yeah.
things, but it was one of your puzzle pieces. So I guess I don't, I guess I'm surprised that these journals are basically the written word, so to speak.
They I used to say when I did my performances that I talk to find out what I'm thinking. And I think I kind of do the same thing with my writing, or maybe the opposite thing. I write in these journals to I write in these journals to have ideas. I don't have an idea that I'm trying to write it down. I have I write to uncover an idea or a concept, and the the book, the journal, is a record of my
Search for ideas.
yes, my search for ideas. Yes, exactly. You put that nicely. Um, so I don't think of them as like the historical record. Like I say, the cloud takes care of that for you. If you post them on Facebook or you take a picture of them, and I do a lot of photographing of the things that, my journal pages and things like that. And then I do these stream of consciousness streaming performances, which I call drawing lessons, where again, they're improvised. So I'm responding to the bird right now. bird is
Eh,
chirping over
Your
there.
birds are chirping and my dogs are barking.
Yeah, it sounds like a dog, but this
Not your
particular
birds,
parakeet
but
is.
my dogs sound like dogs
Oh
barking
yeah.
at the neighbors.
Well, thanks so much for helping me struggle through an explanation of some of this. I spend a lot of time by myself. Um, it started during COVID, and during COVID, I worked with 144 artists from all over the world through the Buckminster Fuller Institute to brainstorm ideas about how to basically how to make the world better for 100% of life on the planet. And we had a lot of great discussions and ideas, and that led me to a kind of streaming performing that's different from what I used to do. I used to do things like I like so I used to do things like, if I had to give a talk, I would wash a set of stairs and then try to keep notes on the thoughts that I had washing the staircase, and then I'd follow that structure rather than a kind of narrative structure, or the kind of structure where you go topic, sentence, Roman numeral one, Arabic numeral one, a capital A, little a, that kind of thinking that is all based on communicating. It's based on communicating an idea you already have. And this is the question to me. like I think most art students encounter it when they have to go through something like a thesis defense. Do you basically write your thesis about how you got there? Is it just a history or a chronology of telling you how your work developed? So you treat yourself like a you act like a historian of your activities, or do you make the artwork and then try to explain the artwork, or make sense of it? Because
You know, Mel, excuse me for interrupting, but
yeah, no,
sometimes you
no.
don't know. I mean, you don't know at all what it is that you did. Because I went to the thesis gallery, and for years I had my thesis piece hanging in my office, my cubicle. And so there was this woman that works at the library, and she did origami. And I said to her, teach me how to do origami. And she came to my office and she brought me some pieces that she had done. And she looked at my thesis piece and she said, who did that? And I didn't say anything. And she said, well, that's origami. And I had no idea. I
Yeah.
mean, I never saw it like that. I never I saw it translucent skin, things that you can see through, all these things from art school. But here I was trying to make origami, and here was this woman who had never seen it before. I looked at it and said, hey, that's origami. And I thought, oh, I can do origami. So sometimes you don't even know. I mean, you can do all the structure you want. You can go up steps. You can aleph as in the alphabet in Arabic, or A as in English, and you can go up the steps, wash them or whatever, and that's all very fine. But I don't think sometimes you know until somebody points out. I'm not saying I'm pointing out anything here. I'm just trying to learn things. Until you explore something or ask somebody. I think interaction is very, very important. Otherwise, you end up, like you said, you got together with a bunch of artists and you talked about during COVID, and you talked about the world we live in. I don't know, but I've never seen the tape, so I don't know what it was about. But I think the revelations come from interaction.
Absolutely. I think the best thing about a journaling in some ways is just that you get into the habit of it, and you make a kind of commitment to when I say I talk to find out what I'm thinking, that's what you're doing in the journal. I write the things as they flow from me, and then after I go back, Bertie, hey, Budgie, they're really noisy today. Sorry.
I
Hey,
can't hear them.
oh, you can't hear them? Oh,
No.
they're very loud here. It's screeching in my ear, but nevertheless, the bird is doing what I'm doing. The bird is talking to establish a desire to communicate. When when we understand it, because our brains are sense-making tools, we make sense of it, whether or not it's what the artist intended, or whether it's just our interpretation, or our misunderstanding of that. We spend a lot of time in a journal. It obligates you to create something, to say something, even if you don't know exactly what you're saying. Just like this crazy conversation that I've had here with you. It's like trying to stutter your way into making some kind of sense. hopefully we have the ability to record that, and we can look at it and we can say, wow, they're just, he's just rambling, or he's so disconnected. But there's a path there. There's a path there. There's always a path, and the easiest way to find it is to follow the breadcrumbs, follow the trail that you left in the journal that suggest movement from point A to point B, and in process rather than aiming toward a particular product. The process is trying to find not a product, but to find what the journey is, the path is.
And at the end, to come out with a statement at different points, like you journal one journal, and then there's a statement that comes from your breadcrumbs. And, I don't know. I don't think this is a crazy conversation. I actually learning a lot about your process. And I think that it's kind of cool. And I also think that, the fact that you print your pages out, that you put them on the cloud, that you use them as dream sense. I made that up. Is dream sense or some kind of dream, process is great.
Well, I appreciate you giving me the chance to try to understand them a little better myself.
Well, I don't know. Did I do that, or do you just understand them because you think so much?
Well, I know this. I spent time thinking about journals and so forth before this started, and then I didn't want it to be a lecture, but that's my typical way of thinking. I just get started talking, and then I just, it's a lecture. It's kind of a lecture. I appreciate your being there to a conversation is an interruption in the stream of consciousness. It's like an opportunity to maybe
it's an interaction, Mel.
Yes, it pushes you off course. It pushes you off course. Yeah.
It stops you from spinning your wheel in your head. It actually makes you talk things out and explain things to somebody else. And then by explaining things to somebody else, though I think you've done that all your life. Like you've explained things to people about your process. And you've always done that. For me, that's at least what I see, that you've always done the explanation of your process. And now you're doing an explanation of your process in your journals.
Yeah, well, I'm doing it. The process right now is a process of deconstruction in a way. There's this, a kind of spontaneity and letting go of the lesson part of thing. My lessons these days are lessons about the process and not lessons about how to paint or how to do this sort of thing. They're just engagement in the process of deconstruction.
Well, I really appreciate the fact that you talked to me, and I really appreciate what you showed me, and I got a pretty good idea of how you journal, and I think it's very helpful for anybody who wants to know about journaling and process, that they can watch it, although I'm not a big YouTube source, I'm not, but it'll go on my YouTube channel, and there's not much to edit, really. It's just a conversation with Mel Andinga.
Well, that was a fun one. I haven't had a chance to have a long conversation with you for many years, so thank you very much for inviting me.
And we used to do that or
Yeah, yeah,
we tried anyway. We went
yeah,
through
yeah.
Hans and a lot of things. So I'm glad that we had this chance. Can I turn off the recording and ask you a question?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't want it on the recording. I think
okay.
we're pretty well done.
All right. Well, thank you for so much for doing this.
That's my pleasure. Let me stop the